Now let's start with today's TTRA partner webinar with MMGY. Kees Bosselaar, Managing Director of MMGY Travel Intelligence, will share insights from the Portrait of European International Travelers study, revealing key trends and behaviors among European travelers. I'll now hand it over to Kees. Kees, the floor is yours. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mike, for your kind introduction. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone, and good evening for those that have logged in from Europe or the UK. My name is Kees Bosselaar, and I work for MMGY Travel Intelligence, which is the research division of MMGY Global. I took a quick peek at the list of people that have registered, and I saw a lot of friends from the industry that I've worked with in the past, which is great. It's also not strange, since I have worked already for more than 30 years in the travel, tourism, and hospitality industry. Anyway, thank you for your time, and thank you, Mike and TTRA, for the opportunity to share some of the results and findings of the Portrait of European International Travelers 2024. So let me share my screen. Here we are. Many of you are familiar with our portrait series, especially the Portrait of American Travelers, which we have been conducted for over 30 years. There are other portrait series research studies. So today we're going to talk about the European International Traveler Study. We also have done American and Canadian, an outbound study, Asian International Travelers, also an outbound study, European Meeting and Convention Travel, LGBTQ plus travelers in America, and also portraits of travelers with disabilities like mobility and accessibility, or family travel, autism, ADHD, and neurodiversity, and much more. So those are the portrait series that are all accessible via our recently launched MMGY Travel IQ. It's an Intel library with all the research, syndicated research that we have conducted over the past 4 years, and we add every month new studies. But today, we're going to talk about Portrait of European International Travelers. Now, I know there are a lot of researchers on the line, so I better spend some time on methodology so that I don't get angry emails. So let's talk about the methodology. So this is the 3rd edition. We did the European International Travel Study in 22, 23, and 24. It is we field a survey in France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and the UK, so 5 countries. So during my presentation, when I refer to European travelers, I'm referring to travelers, international travelers from France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and the UK. We fielded the survey from July 22 to August the 6th this year. Sample size in total for 4,800 in each of the 5 source countries. And we fielded it among respondents aged 18 or older that showed an intent to travel internationally for leisure within the next 12 months, within or outside Europe. Once again, we were not focusing on people that travelers that traveled domestically, only internationally, within Europe or outside Europe. It was a 20-minute online survey, and the sample has been weighted based on age and gender. So far for the methodology. Let's talk about 6 or 7 main highlights of the study. The first one is the number of international trips and spent. Let's take a look at the bottom of the screen. So in 2022, which you could say that was the first normal year after COVID, we knew that the number of trips that Europeans wanted to take would have been pretty significant, because people had not traveled for 2-3 years, were ready to travel. Revenge travel actually became a known thing. So we noticed in 2022 that Europeans on average wanted to have 2.3 international trips during the next 2 years and spent about $4,000. The year after, we knew this was going to be decreased a little bit, so it went to 2.1 because they did all that travel, pent-up demand travel in 22. In 23, they were a little bit more modest, so they said, well, 2.1. However, we were surprised to see that they were still spending more than the year before. Many reasons. One of them, most likely, this was high inflation, and people knew that air is more expensive, accommodation is more expensive, so we need to spend more to travel the same kind number of trips. So this year we were curious, where is this trending? And to our surprise, happily surprised, we saw that Europeans now are planning 2.9 international holidays during the next 2 years. So it's clearly up, and they even want to spend more, 5,739 in the next 12 months. So good news. Let's dig a little deeper. So here, this is we are looking at number of trips again. The average is 2.9 for those 5 European countries. And we see that Italian travelers are right on that mark, but Spanish travelers and France travelers are below the 2.9. But Germans and British, as you can see, 3.3 trips in the next 2 years. In terms of spend, Italians spent a bit less than the others. Actually, Spain is here on the bottom, followed by Italy. But look at the spend from the British travelers. And it has grown here from 2023 from 6,000, almost 7,000 to 7,500. So a good spend per country. Number of trips by generation, and here you can see that the younger travelers clearly make more, are intent to take more trips, international trips, than older. 1.8 for boomers, Gen Z 2.7. In terms of spend, millennials spent the most in 2024, $6,500 more than any other generation. When we look at household income, on the left are euros, on the right it's the UK in British pounds. And here you can see the higher the household income, the more trips one take, and even 4.9 for people in the UK that make more than 75,000 British pounds per year. What do they spend? Here you can see the UK traveler that makes more than 75,000 pounds per year spent 14,000 in the next 12 months. So interesting what the increase is per household income. So we know now what they spend, how many trips, but where do they want to go? What is the destination preference? So what we see is that Europeans by far would like to spend their holiday in Europe. 80% would like to stay within Europe, followed by the United States, the Caribbean, and Canada, all in the 40 to 50% area. And you also can see that it's pretty stable. You don't see a lot of differences between 23 and 24. We do see Canada a little bit down from 44% to 41%. Now, those are people that are very to extremely interested in visiting a particular destination in the next 3 years. So let's zoom in on where they want to go. So when it comes to Europe, Europeans want to go, or the top 5, they want to go to Italy, Spain, France, Greece. Well, let's do a few more. Portugal, England, Germany. Those are the top destinations that Europeans would like to travel to. And it's pretty stable. We don't see a lot of changes in these destinations. So if they go to the US, where do they want to go? New York by far #1 with 57, and actually it's growing. And it's now 60% of European travelers who would like to visit New York in 2024. At least they would like. They told us in 2024 that 60% would like to go to New York in the next 3 years, followed by LA, Miami, Florida. San Francisco went a little bit down from 45 to 38. Las Vegas, Washington, Orlando, also a little bit down from 27 to 24. New Orleans, Chicago, Florida Keys, Honolulu, Hawaii, San Diego. Here you can see where Europeans would like to go to in the US. I saw on the list that there were a few people from Canada. So let's also look at the numbers in Canada. In the top three by far, Quebec, Ontario, and British Columbia. That is followed by Nova Scotia, 21%, pretty stable in the last 3 years. And you can see for yourself the popularity of others. But clearly, Quebec, Ontario, British Columbia are the top three. I also noticed some DMOs from the Caribbean. So just quickly, the Bahamas, Cuba. Cuba is a big destination for European travelers. They don't have the intricacies that US travelers have to deal with when they want to go to Cuba. Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Barbados, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda. That is the top 6-7% of where they want to go. So we don't know where they want to go, but what are the motivators and the activities that European travelers want to do in destination? Let's first take a look at the most important factors when planning international trips. And what we see, and it has grown in the past 3 years, the safety of the destination as it relates to violence and unrest is high. 86% was lower in the past. So that seems to be one of the most, or that is one of the most important factors when they're planning a trip. More important than budget, which is at 84, finding a good deal, 83, and the weather in the destination. So that's clearly a thing that DMOs have to take into account. That's what European travelers have as number one important factor when deciding on the destination. Top motivators when they're deciding on an international vacation. Clearly, experiencing different cultures, desire to get away and unplug, exploring nature and the outdoors. Those are the top three by far. Spend time away with family and friends, learning about indigenous population, experience an off-the-beat path destination, etc. You can see here, interestingly, and I get back to that in a second, experiencing new cuisines. For Europeans, cuisine has always been important, but it has grown in importance the last few years. So those are the toppers. Let's go to top activities of interest when they are on international holidays. Again, top 5, enjoying beautiful scenery and historic sites, experiencing restaurants and food experiences. Here it is again, and once again, I get back to this one in a minute. Beach activities, museums, and walking tours. Let's take a look at the bottom of the list. Shopping at high-end retailers, only 14%. I mean, it's still there, but not to the extent of historic sites, of restaurants and food experiences. Cooking and culinary classes, also 14% has an interest. Skiing and snowboarding, that's a different animal, of course, because that's a totally different kind of vacation. And playing golf, pretty low, 5%. This is way higher when we look at the results of American and Canadian international travelers. I promise you to get back to the culinary experiences. They are high on the list, but what does it actually mean? The number one, so we asked for the culinary options of interest when traveling internationally. Authentic food eaten by locals, 60%. Street food, including food trucks, is number 2. Hard to find foods or dishes that are only available in that particular city or country. Food tours, 36%. Brand new dining experiences, distillery or brewery tours, winery tours. As you can see, it's pretty detailed here what Europeans like when they are on a vacation. I would like to say that Michelin star restaurants and award-winning restaurants are not in the top. Celebrity chef-owned restaurants, 16%. Usually we see these numbers a little bit higher among American travelers. It's still there, but it's lower than we see with when we conduct this research in the US for outbound travel. From culinary experiences, I would like to talk about climate change. Um, in the past 2, 3 years, we all were unfortunately aware of some of the wildfires that were happening in Europe and in North America. Wildfires in Greece, in Italy. Uh, we had them in Canada and Hawaii, and Maui. So wildfires and high temperatures in popular tourism destinations. Um, for example, Italy and again Greece really saw some high temperatures in the past 2 years during the summer. Italy, Spain, Arizona had some very high temperatures during the summer, and we wanted to know, okay, how does this affect travel behavior? And this is what we noticed. 16% of travelers, of European travelers, changed their travel plans due to rising temperatures in their chosen destination. 60% yes, we had altered our travel plans. So what did they do? From those 16%, and again, 16 is not that high. It's not like 35%, but it's there. And we keep track of this number because this might increase in the years to come. So what do travelers do to deal with, in this case, rising temperatures? Some of them, 38%, changed the travel dates to visit during a different time of the year. Another, almost the same, 37% chose to visit a different travel destination at the time. Others booked a different accommodation that was equipped with air conditioning or central air. That's 29%. And then a quarter, 26, said, hey, I canceled the trip entirely because of rising temperatures. And another 24% said, I've changed my itinerary to include fewer outdoor activities. So that's for high temperatures. Now, how about when we talk about wildfires? Have you altered your travel plans due to wildfires in your chosen travel destination? And 13% said yes. So what did they do? The 46% choose for a different travel destination, 43% to change their travel dates, and 30% canceled the trip altogether. Something to keep in mind, interesting for DMOs, especially DMOs that do not have wildfires or high temperatures. They might have an opportunity to attract more visitors in the years to come. Let's talk about trip planning. So around half of all European travelers have trips planned and booked about 3 to 6 months in advance. You can see that this is the 3 to 6 month mark. So what you can see here, 52% planning, 48% booking of all travelers in this particular month, and about a quarter more than 6 months to a year, and another about a quarter less than 3 months. But clearly the majority plans and books the trips 3 to 6 months ahead of time. We saw something interesting because now on the left you see planning timelines, on the right booking timelines, and we took a look per country. And this particular light gray line is the booking for UK that UK travelers showed us. And when it comes to planning, still 33%, much more than all the other countries combined, plan their trips more than 6 months to a year. So they are earlier with their planning a trip. Same for booking. Important for DMOs to see that the UK travelers clearly have a different timeline when it comes to booking and planning their leisure vacation. Always an interesting discussion. Hey, what is the sequence of the items in travelers? What elements do travelers do first? Here we have select a destination, or do they first talk about the budget? when do they pick the type of holiday? Do they start with saying, hey, I want to have a cruise vacation and I have so much money and therefore I would like to go there? We asked all the travelers, hey, what comes first? Selecting the destination was by far the number one, the first step of European travelers. Select the destination. After the destination is selected, they set the budget, and only then will they pick the type of holiday: cruise, beach, golf, cuisine, whatever. Um, Followed by comparing prices, features for possible travel service providers, etc. Next, as you can see, they would research online travel reviews and ratings, talk to friends and family, etc. But the most important three are: select the destination, set holiday budget, pick type of holiday. So 63% of the travelers in the European countries indicate that they are relying on more sources of advice than ever before they make a travel decision. And you can see here on the bottom, that counts especially for Spain. About 80% of Spanish travelers spend a lot of time on resources and sources of advice when they make the travel decisions, much lower than, for example, in the UK with 46%. When you look at the generation, Gen Z, 68%, and boomers, much lower. So boomers spend less time on with their sources of advice when they make travel decisions. So, but when it comes to the decisions, what sources are considered when they are planning travel? Top 5 online travel agencies like Expedia, Booking.com, etc. Travel review websites, the destination websites, very important for everybody on the line that works for a DMO, is number 3 on sources that they use for when they make a decision on their travel destination, what to do, etc. Friends or family used to be number 1 about 10 years ago. I remember that. Right now, number 4, although still in the top 4. Online visitor guides. This is interesting. Printed travel guidebooks are still there. Yes, much less than the top 3, only 26%, but it's still out there. Printed travel guidebooks still being used. Traditional travel advisor or travel agent if you want. And you can see the rest of the list. But clearly, online is where it's happening. So when it comes to online information, what kind of websites are travelers, European travelers, looking for? And we see here Booking.com by far number 1, TripAdvisor, Trivago, Expedia, and YouTube. Those are the top kind of websites that the European travelers use for their travel information. Let's talk about social media, because how much does that influence the travel decisions? And we see that more than half of European travelers have been, at least partially, influenced in their travel destination choice by social media content. 52%. Not surprisingly, if you look at Gen Z, Millennials, and Gen X, Gen Z 76%, followed by 62% for Millennials, Gen X 46%, and the Boomers with a very low 26%. They simply do not use social media that much to make travel decisions. What kind of platforms are being used? By far the number 1, YouTube, with 31%, Instagram 25%, Facebook much lower with 16%, and TikTok growing but currently 14%. And that's really the top 4. After that, you have, yes, Pinterest and X and Telegram, but they are below 10%. They have 5%, 5%, 4%, etc. The 4 main platforms are YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So in the past 2 years, we've asked during those trip planning of Europeans, hey, do you use ChatGPT? We did not ask it 3 years ago because GPT or other AI tools were not that popular or didn't exist yet. But 3 years ago, if we were if we were to have asked it, the answer will be 0% because it didn't exist. We've asked last year and this year. And this year, 41% of travelers used ChatGPT or another AI tool for travel planning. 41%. That's up from 36% in 2023. Where do you use it for? If I look at those numbers, basically they use it for everything. I don't see anything really stand out. So it's currently to plan a trip itinerary, generate travel ideas or getting inspiration, suggest destination of interest, suggest activities of interest when traveling, etc. I don't see a big difference here, but I think the main thing is 41% are using it. Important for DMOs to know this. Let's talk about sustainability in travel for a second. So 29% of the European travelers indicate that they have avoided a destination or transportation option because they felt it was not committed to sustainable practices. How does that differ by country? Spain travelers and Italian travelers are especially interested in destinations and transportation options that commit to sustainable practices. Less so for Germans and French travelers, and the UK only 23%. So main differences by source countries. How does that work by generation? You clearly can see Gen Z 41%, very high, Millennials 35, and Gen X 26. And a bit shameful because I happen to be part of this generation. Boomers only 18%, only 18% for boomers in 2024. The good news is that we ask, how interested are you in learning more about sustainability practices? And about 59% told us, yes, we are interested to learn more about sustainable travel practices. Then the last question that we ask is, hey, how open are you to pay a premium? And 33% of European travelers said, nope, I'm not willing to pay more for sustainable travel options. And here you can see, so that means 2/3 says, yeah, I am willing to. 42% only 1 to 5% more, pay 1 to 5% more, 20% pay 6 to 10% more, and 4%, 11 to 24% more. If we look at generations, and I don't have a slide here about it, but you can see that especially boomers are not willing to travel a premium, whereas other generations do want to pay a premium. Last but not least, I would like to talk about cruising. We're getting quite some questions about this. How do Europeans see cruising as an alternative vacation? Are they interested in cruises? And the answer is absolutely yes. They are interested in taking cruises during the next 2 years. When it comes to a big ship cruise or an ocean cruise, 48% this year, last year 47%. Next, but less popular, the river cruises, especially the European river cruises, 42%, no change. And a little bit less, the expedition cruise was 38% last year, 37% this year. And the last question is, okay, but where do they want to take that cruise? And here's the answer. About 50% would like to do it take a cruise in the Caribbean, 50% in Europe, and the Mediterranean. Those are the top three, clearly on top of all other areas in the world to take a cruise. A quarter Pacific Ocean, the United States 24%, and then really the percentages get much lower. All right, ladies and gentlemen, those were some of the highlights and takeaways of the 2024 Portrait of European International Travelers. If you have any questions, then you can ask them now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but if at any time you have a question, please send me an email or let's jump on a call. I would love to answer any questions that you have. So let me stop sharing. And Mike, I'm back. How are you?
Amazing case. Thank you so much for sharing that really rapid fire info, a lot of info. So there will be a recording of this presentation, folks, so that you can go back and reference. Again, if there are any questions for Case, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we can get to them. In the meantime, maybe I've got a couple of questions for you, Case, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
Even anecdotally from your given your expertise and knowledge, with the rise in sustainable tourism, how can destinations make their eco-friendly offerings sort of stand out to European
Yeah,
travelers?
yeah. So if you allow me to take 20 seconds, then
Absolutely.
I have here, I'm going through a deck here that you don't see, but I'm doing that right now. And I would like to share, I found it. I would like to share my screen here. I hope you can see it.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, so what is it, what I here this slide shows you what items, what elements of sustainable travel do Europeans, what do they find important and and do practice them while traveling. And here you can see that from left to right, buy from local shops. That's a very important one. Eat at local restaurants, buy locally produced food. Um, so 51% always, 45% sometimes, never 3%. Use less single-use plastic. Visit destinations in the off-season to reduce overcrowding. Book trips with environmentally friendly hotels and tour companies. Research ways to support the local community. Those are the things that Europeans find relevant and important. So I think that DMOs should take a good look at, okay, what elements of sustainability resonates with European travelers. Let me stop sharing. I hope that that answered your question, Mike.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you, Case. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's brilliant. One more question for you, and then
sure.
if there are no more questions, we'll let you go.
All
But
right.
the last question
Yeah,
I had for you was, we were looking at the traveler motivations, and it's sort of unique to European travelers, sort of post pandemic. How can in your expert opinion, let's say, how can marketers use those motivations to sort of create more targeted campaigns? Do you
yeah,
have any advice?
yeah. It's okay. The first one is uh, uh, my presentation was about European travelers. Um, and you talk in generalities. That's always a bit dangerous, but you only have 30 minutes and you cannot. This was not about Italian travelers or French travelers. It was about that group of 5 countries. So it's so important for DMOs, for US DMOs, but around the world. It's nice to have those overall figures that I talked about, but every country, a Norwegian and a Swedish person travels so differently than Italian and somebody from Poland. Um, it's so important to distinguish the each separate market and don't see that always as a European market. So that's number one. Two, there are a few things that you can talk about in general. So Europeans usually have longer vacations than Americans. So they can spend more time in a particular destination, like to go a little deeper. They are less focused on the particular highlights. Um, Americans tend to go to Europe and they want to see they definitely want to see a particular museum or they want to see Venice. And they have limited time, so they want to see the highlights. Europeans have more time, go to the US and spend more time in the outdoors. Um, like to to look at other destinations, not the top destinations. Which is, for example, as you know, in Europe, a problem. Too many people like Barcelona, which is a great destination, but too many people like Barcelona in July and August. Same for Venice, same for Amsterdam, the city where I was born. They all have that problem. And it's for Europeans, when you have more time and you're willing to look at destinations that are not necessarily the number one primary destination, you get a whole different kind of travel when it comes to the differences between American and European travelers. I hope that gave you an idea of how I see some of the main differences between American travelers and European travelers.
Yeah, thank you. Amazing. Great research. Where can folks access the full reports? Can you just remind everyone?
Yeah, they just go to our website, mmgy.com or mmgyglobal.com. I do not know. And there you have all the brands from MMGY Global. One of them is the research division, MMGY Travel Intelligence. If you go there, you can see, you can go to the library to see what the library offers. And my email address is there. So any questions that you have, please send me an email, or we can jump on a call. Um, I see there was a question from
Yeah,
a.
Case, you see the Chat GPT
Let
question that's
me
there in the
yeah,
chat?
let me read the question. How arrived? So does everybody see this, or do I have to read it?
Everyone should see it.
Okay. So the question is that the trip planning 41% seems quite high given AI is more popular in the UK, less in Europe, and more amongst the younger generations. Perhaps you could share a bit more about how you arrived at that number. How we arrived at that number, that is by asking the questions to all five to travelers from all those 5 countries. I do have the number for the UK versus the 4 European countries. I do not have that in front of me. So I gladly, Eva, get back to you with that answer. I think it's a very good question. Uh, I like to get back to you on that one. Because how we arrived at that number, we asked the question, how many did use it? How did you use it? Um, I have to take a deeper look in the number to get back to Eva with that particular question.
Perfect. Yeah, we have Ava's contact info for sure, Case, and we can share that with you.
Okay.
Thank you so much to TTRA partner MMGY. If there are no more questions, we'll end it there. Again, you can access the recording, and you have MMGY website info and Case's contact info there in the chat. Thank you, everyone, for participating and joining. And Case, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you everybody on the call. Appreciate your attention, and have a very nice day.
Ciao.
Bye bye.